Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, Crystal Stokes here, and joining me today is Meghan Bingham, who has 25 years of experience in veterinary medicine, spanning roles from kennel assistant to technician to customer service representative and practice manager in both private and corporate settings. Currently, she serves as a veterinary advisor at Granite Peak Associates, a veterinary exclusive CPA firm headquartered in Boston, where she dedicates herself to assisting clients and enhancing their processes and operations to the best of their abilities. So Meghan, thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you. Every time we talk about 25 years, I'm like, 25 years plus. Okay. It's great.
Amazing, isn't it? How time flies.
Yeah. Good. It's a good place to be, right?
Yeah, I agree. Best industry ever. So let's start off with an icebreaker, just to get to know you a little bit better. Because I know that you are a great conversationalist and people probably think they know you pretty well. But I want to hear about something that maybe most people don't know about you.
I think the biggest surprise right now is that my husband and I are opening up a Lego franchise store this summer.
Yes.
Anybody who knows me would think that that is a surprise because Lego is not my thing. But I want to be supportive of my husband. I also want to get all the Lego out of my house currently. So I was like, we can open up a store if it all goes away. So we're on tap for that. So I'll do the business side of things and he'll do the Lego side of things.
That is definitely very interesting. It's so niche.
It's very niche. I think my husband's a man child, right? And so I think that this is just like him. He's a firefighter. And so he calms down by doing Lego. And so I think that this is fulfilling his childhood dream. So.
Oh, that is so cool. And I see the theme in your history of the operational role that you're drawn in to do that operational work because you're good at it.
I was like, I can do the books on the weekend and you do everything else.
Perfect. Sounds awesome.
Good, right? Good. We shall see. Wish me luck.
That's really cool. Well, so today we're here to talk about a topic that I think is going to be very interesting to most of our listeners, those who run or manage or support teams. We're going to talk about resetting or realigning your team. So let's just start off with defining what that means. Because even from the get-go, when you and I were starting this conversation, I was thinking, how to reset or realign your team after some big hurdle or some big event. And then you said, actually, even day to day on the micro is important. So let's go ahead and sort of introduce what that topic even means, realigning and resetting your team.
I think that we get so bogged sometimes and these little things happen, you get a bad phone call and it just dominoes, right? One person starts bad-mouthing a client and then by the end of it, half an hour later, everybody's cranky. And so I think there's little things that happen like that. There's big things that happen, clients yelling at us. That's now part of our normal day-to-day, week-to-week thing. Sad euthanasias. I think bouncing back from medical mistakes. I think that there's lots of things that if we don't address them, just compound into staff negativity. And so there's got to be a way to get them out of that funk.
So then we think about realigning our team. The reason, the why behind it is to bring more positivity, to prevent toxic negativity from spiraling into something worse.
I think all of that, right? We can't have one hiccup dictate who we are. And if you're mad at the previous client and you go into another room, that rubs off. If there's a dog barking in the background that's annoying you, that might translate to the dog in front of you. There just needs to be a way to acknowledge, right? We're going to feel it. It's going to suck. And then we're going to let it go and move on.
So for those listening today, if they're questioning and wondering to themselves, how do I know if my team needs to be realigned? What are some signs that they might be looking for to tell them ooh, your team's a bit out of alignment?
I mean, we all know, right? And it could be kind of raunchy behavior, which I think is norm for vet ed. I think so many of us became feral during COVID, right? Like we were wearing leggings and listening to ghetto rap, and that was like, okay. And so we had to, like, that was a big reset, right? Like letting clients back in the building. We had to act like humans again. We had to be professional. And so I think if there's one person with a really big emotional attitude, like we need to pay attention to them. If they come in angry, if they everybody throws things in that net, right? Like we're throwing Sharpies and I don't know. Somebody talks about throwing syringes and I'm like, oh my God, like we've got to get away from like this toxic, awful behavior. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to call them out on it, right? You have to acknowledge it to be able to move on. So I think we know this isn't like a low level, like grumbling about a pizza party. This is like the big elephant in the room that people don't want to address.
Yeah. So the way I will share that I've experienced is oftentimes I'm in clinic shadowing and floating and just kind of feeling the vibe of the hospital. And in clinics, I would say are lacking alignment. You can feel a tension across the entire clinic, and the body language, the microexpressions, the tone that we might be using, just the overall attitude within the hospital. It doesn't feel friendly. It doesn't feel like we're working together as a team. It's more of a grit your teeth and get through the day, feeling short, feeling irritated. And we know that emotions can be contagious. So it sounds like what you're describing is when a team hits a little bump in the road, and that can set us in a direction of more tension, more frustration, more irritability, which can come out in a variety of ways, like little behaviors that we see. And if you're able to catch that early and just realign your team and have your team getting more and more comfortable with realignment, that's really the big picture of what we're talking about today, how to nip that negativity in the bud. Wonderful. And I want to come back to something you mentioned, because I thought it's a good point you're making, is around professionalism. Can you speak more to that? Like you having this very diverse staff and kind of like our definition of like, what does professionalism even mean? I'd love to open up alarms. Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, like it was written in my handbook. I need to address, it's such a nebulous, like, what is professionalism? But so we need to narrow it down. And you want to give some examples. Like we're not going to talk about how many White Claws we drank the night before up front in the lobby. We're not going to badmouth a client. We're not going to talk in the hallway behind the exam room doors. We're not going to use slang for medical terms, like just some areas we're going to dress in clean, unworn clothes that fit properly. We're going to wear a bra, right? Who knew that like you needed to address these kind of things? And so I think, for me, and kind of, my handbook was always a living document, but it really stuck with me when I had to address one of my doctors who was talking about her favorite position with her technicians and not about x-ray positions. And so I was like, whoa. Like, I realized that we're all friends here, but like some things are inappropriate. And so I think, yes, defining some things. And then that's what I came up with, a code word that I could use that I would just throw out there. Our code word was taco. So when I would walk by a group of people who were too loud or too rambunctious or too raunchy, I could just say like, taco, and move on. So I didn't have to scold them. And no one had to stop what they were doing. Like the activity, like we're just going to reset. And so that was a big shift for things for me, because no one wants to be the fun police, right? I don't want to go around saying like, oh, you can't talk about that. But sometimes you can't talk about that. Mm-hmm. So I needed something that was like quick and easy and everybody knew.
So you all, in your practice, you had a living document, a handbook that was growing as your company grew. So when you hire a new team member, they're given this handbook and they're expected to understand what's in it. Did you have any other practices that you would do perhaps in the onboarding portion to help people? You know how it is, we're handed a handbook and it's like, oh, along with all the other parts of my training packet, which parts do I kind of just, professionalism, just breeze through and don't really read versus I sit down and look at. So how did you work on that with your team members, especially the newer ones, to make sure they were really understanding the expectations within your hospital?
So sometimes I would put in code where I would put in just like a little word that didn't belong. And then I would come back and ask them if they could find that word. And so as they were going through it, they kind of knew that then they had to pay more attention. So like a little typo or a little, like a misprint, so that they might snap too. And so when they might not get it the first time, but when you come back to them the second time and say like, what was wrong with this section? Then they kind of knew they had to pay more attention.
Ooh, that's really clever.
Or I look like an idiot, right? When you're reading through my handbook and it's got a misprint. But the idea is like, because it is like, it's so dry and like no one thinks it pertains to them. And, as this thing grows, it goes from 20 to 30 pages. And I get that that's a lot, especially when you're new. So, breaking it down into sections, quizzing them about it, that kind of thing, it helps a lot, I think, for retention.
Making it more engaging, bite-sized pieces, talking through it.
It needs to be, an interactive thing and not just a passive thing.
Mm-hmm. I always find this is a nice topic to do in the team meetings, like when you have these little small breakout pods of, you might have the reception team, might have the lead tech team, and it's talking to them about how do you define professionalism? What does it mean to you? How's it been role modeled to you in the past or not? Like what is your definition of not being professional? And it's fun to talk through these things and just see what we can all bring to the table.
It's so silly too, and like to come up with good, like some catchphrases to have. So I had an HR director who, I can't imagine doing HR, especially for vet med, but like she would say, "Oh, I hate that for you." And I was really like, I felt heard, but at the same time, like she wasn't apologizing for something that wasn't hers or, so just some key phrases that are, I hear what you're saying, just some things that you can do, to help each other feel validated without, spiraling into like the anger and the miscommunication.
Sure, definitely. Could you mention a few common occurrences that you experience in clinic that can knock the team off of alignment?
For sure, the biggest one is clients, right? A cranky client. I think that happens more and more these days. I think people have a shorter fuse, both on the client side and on the practice side. I think that one incident happens where a client is out of turn and then forever and ever we hate them. Our memory is very long. And so they can never get out of that funk. I think that there's always some cases where clients deserve to be fired, right? Like, I want to support my staff. I clearly support my staff. You can't use vile language. You can't be threatening. Like there's some hard stops, but also like we need to recognize that clients are having a bad day, either outside the practice or like they're just worried about their animal. Like we should acknowledge that we're horrible clients. I know whenever my dog is sick, I'm always the one that's like calling every 10 minutes and saying like, what's going on? Did you do this right? Like we have super high standards and the clients do too. And sometimes we make mistakes and like, it's okay for the client to be upset. Like we're upset when we go to a restaurant and they get our order wrong. Like it's kind of the same thing. And so we need to provide some grace for these clients that deserve it. But also be able to reset our staff afterwards. So I like, for things like that, I really like the 30-second dance button.
Okay, tell us what this is, because I love that it's fun to marry these together. Let's marry together like a typical challenge you have and then a solution you'd like to provide, and we'll weave back and forth. So for this one, when you'd had a challenging client come in, the staff has their hackles up, their feathers are ruffled, every animal analogy we can give, you like the 30-second dance button.
30-second dance button is my favorite. So you can get it from all your favorite places like Amazon, whatever. So this one, you can record your own songs. So it's Taylor Swift, right? So I chose Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. And then you just have 30 seconds worth of dance, I've even done this with clients in the lobby because the clients are there. They saw that you had a rough, exchange. They know that the client was spicy. So like literally just shaking it off helps kind of reset. Some people that do a Cards Against Humanity round or Cards Against, Vet Sanity or whatever it is. Little candy bars. Like there's all sorts of things that you can just 30 seconds, reset, take a breath, like stop the tears of the girl that's crying over, there's all of these things. So, I think that is a huge one because your front desk staff has got to be on point and they've got to be able to smile at the next person that comes in the door. So you have to get your wiggles out, right? Just be a little silly and not internalize it and not spread that like vileness onto the next person.
Love it. That's so fun. Okay, let's talk about a heavier one, though. Euthanasia. You just had a really difficult euthanasia come in. Let's say the whole team loved this dog. It's been coming to you all for years and years. You're very invested in the family as a whole, and we had to say goodbye to this pet. And the spirit in the hospital is very, very low, as you would expect. How do you like to realign the team around something that's more tenderhearted?
I mean, and that's, we want everyone to be able to have their feelings, right? And that's so important. You can't just say like, suck it up and move on to the next appointment, right? You have to acknowledge that this job is hard, that you had a relationship with these clients, you had a relationship with these pets. Like, it's not just something that you can move on. So I say like, embrace the suck, right? We're going to shed the tears. We're going to hug the clients. We're going to have the moments. And then we're going to give reverence to the animal as we're either, bagging it up, decorating the youth bag is a popular one. I like some sort of art therapy. So like, painting a river rock, decorating the paw print, making a card. I think all of those things kind of are cathartic and give you that release of like a calming kind of endorphin to just kind of breathe and embrace it and think about it and be mindful and then breathe it out and move on.
It's so important because in some practices, this could be a daily event, depending on the type of setting that you're in, and having a space to really acknowledge it and have a process that people can lean on. They know if this is coming in, they see it on the schedule for the day, that they know they're going to have something afterwards going to help them feel realigned and reset.
And we all have it, right? Like somebody likes black cats and that hits them harder, or somebody like went to school with their son. There's all the things. Men crying. Like if there's a man crying, that it's going to affect the whole staff for a while. And you can't just expect people to bounce back. Or there's some staff members that aren't as invested, who are maybe newer, who don't know the client as well. And like, we can lean on them in those times to carry on with the next appointment. And I don't think we need to like set up an art easel for people to like paint their feelings out or anything. I think it can be a 5 or 10 minute activity that we just focus on so we can be in the moment, have our feelings, and then leave it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed too, on the occasion that we do have team members that might have residual feelings, this could be about anything. It could be, a difficult interaction. It could be challenges between team members. It could be a euthanasia. For those people that might not be able to shake it off, there are people like, me in clinics. So, you have your social workers, you have people that you can help support those that need more time, and they might need to schedule a meeting outside of work to come in and talk about these things, just to know that's perfectly fine too. But it's really important that we have these in clinic, quick go-to strategies of alignment. I think that's so nice and often just overlooked. Another common occurrence that we talked about earlier were medical mistakes. So when these happen, it really shakes people up, right? I can feel my heart racing just thinking about being the person that made the mistake. Like, oh my gosh, if we just sent that dog out the door with the wrong medication, or we gave the wrong medication just now, like it just happened, or, these things happen, and our nervous system just goes wild with that experience of, if we don't have the psychological safety in the hospital, then the go-to reaction is we probably try to hide it, fix it without anybody knowing. If we have psychological safety, then we probably will admit it. Like, oh my gosh, guys, say time out. I just did this thing. So I'd love to hear your take on all of that, psychological safety, making mistakes, and realigning the team after a mistake.
So I will say that I grew up at a place where we did a lot of boarding, and we had a dog get loose. It happens. My practice owner at the time did not want to reach out to the owner, right? We were going to find this dog, put it back in its cage, no harm, no foul. The owner came home early to her dog sitting on the front porch, and we had never told her. So something I could laugh on now, but like when stuff goes south, you have to have a plan. And so I'm a queen of an SOP. I like to know, like, if this, then that. So I think that communication is key here. Like it's a safe place. It's not a blame game. We need to know what happened, and then we need to spend all of our energy on the animal at that point, right? We're going to do whatever we can to fix the mistake. We're going to communicate with the owner in a safe way. We're going to depending on the situation. Like, do we need to call our PLIT provider? Like, do we need to reach out to insurance? That kind of thing. But then we're going to come back together as a group, figure out what happened and how we're going to avoid it. We're not going to point fingers. We're not going to like be ambiguous with a client or, you know, use vague terms so that like that implies guilt to me 100%. And so I think clear communication with the client, clear communication with the staff, we're going to fix the problem and then we're going to regroup and figure out how this is never going to happen again.
Yeah.
I think it's just all about communication and understanding, like we've all done things and some things are worse than others, right? But like we've all made mistakes and we should all know that we're there for a good reason.
Oh, I think I like that. I can hear the why, the why underneath what you're trying to do. Like, why are we all here? And we're here to learn from this error. And I appreciate too how it seems like you take kind of a systems approach to looking at what happened. It's like, okay, yes, that one person might have made the error, but how did that even get to that point? And then how do we course correct and put the proper, like you said, SOPs and whatnot in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again? So what a nice way to handle it. Very thorough, takes it apart, makes people feel like they're understood and you're really trying to learn from this experience.
Right. The goal is to never happen again. And I think sharing that with the client as well is like, and no matter what the situation, scripting out meds wrong or your pet passing under anesthesia, right? These are all, at the end of the day, your client wants to know that this is not going to happen to somebody else. And so I think that that's important to be like, oh my gosh, we recognize the mistake and we recognize how this happened. And this is what we've done to ensure that this never happens again.
Beautiful. If you look back on all of your history, given that you've been, you know, from the kennels all the way up in the practice manager position and beyond, when you look back on times in your career where you were not aligned, like your team felt out of alignment, and now being able to experience ways to course correct and get your team realigned, what do you see as like the long-term benefits to a hospital? Like, you know, big picture, if you experience constant realignment, we're always realigning, how does that look different than the teams you've been on that did not have that alignment?
I think the thing that we kind of all struggle with sometimes is that bad apple, that there's some people that can't course correct and there's some people that just wallow in it and want to be there. And so I have found that it doesn't matter how short-staffed you are, how busy you are, like getting rid of that bad apple can make a huge, huge difference. Like everybody else steps up to the plate. I'm going to work that much harder knowing that that person is gone because now I feel like I'm part of a team. Now we're all in it together. Now we're not like wallowing in misery. I think that that's a huge way that we can show that we're supporting our staff, that we're supporting like the mental wellness, that I want to be a place where people are happy at work. We all know that work sucks, right? Like that's just a given. It's hard for us. It's stinky. Like you don't get paid enough. There's all of the things, but to go to work and be around somebody who's miserable when you're trying your best, like I want to play with puppies, right? I know that's not what we do all day, but like there's a lot of good that comes with it. And if I have to like struggle every day just to try to smile, like that's a hardship that I don't want my staff to have to deal with.
Yeah. I'm imagining that if you're continuously realigning, then the people who are not ready or able or willing to course correct with your team kind of get left back in the dust. Like, hey, we're all realigning here. We're trying to get our head back in the game and have a good attitude and take care of each other as a team. Then the outlier becomes more obvious and perhaps even decides to self-select out to say, I'm going to move on because I'm not fitting in with the company culture here. So if you maintain a very healthy, positive company culture, it becomes really obvious if somebody's not able to join the rest of the group with that.
And sometimes they get bigger, right? Sometimes that negative energy takes up the more space that you kind of cleared, and it makes it more obvious. And so then, I mean, there's just always that like collective breath, that we're going to all exhale once that person's gone. And like, that was a doozy. So I think that there's a lot to be said about getting out that bad apple.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And for those listening today, let's say they might be in a practice manager type position or another type of leadership role, and they're thinking, gosh, I would really like to bring these concepts to my team. Like we don't currently practice anything like the 30-second dance button or having a regular practice for our euthanasias. We definitely don't have like a secret word to use to call out behaviors. How would you suggest they get started with getting the team on board for doing something different?
I think that's the perfect, you just lead right into it, is that you've got to include your team, right? Like I can come up with a code word all day long, but no one's going to remember it because it's something obscure that I thought was really, clever and catchy, and they have no idea. So I think including your team on decisions like that. And I'm sure the dance button is not for everybody, right? But like there's something that is. And so if they can give suggestions, it's going to resonate that much more with them. So just including the team and being like, hey, we need to address these things. Like we all want to do better. No one wants to be miserable, right? Like we all want to be happy and less anxious and less stress and all of those things. And so if they can be included, I think it makes a big difference.
I love that.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a team that I work with where one thing that they came up with together collectively that they felt would help keep them positively aligned would be to do a little mini gratitude at the end of the day, like the end of their shift. They just get together and be like, what was your favorite part of today? Even if it's the worst day ever, they might say that we all got through it together, right? Like, we're done. That's my favorite part of today. But it's still that they're in it together and there's a way to end the day. And they all really look forward to that at the end of the day.
I think that's right. So we do that at work now. We do a professional and a personal peak of our week. And sometimes it's like, I got a new rug for my living room. And sometimes, it can be the little things. And so, yeah, that would be a great way to share and to like, just show, it's like a gratitude journal. Like there's something good every day. And it could be like I ate ice cream for lunch, and it could be there was a gaggle of cute puppies. Like there's all sorts of things that can bring joy to your day. It's just a matter of like acknowledging, right? If you say them out loud, then someone can be like, oh yeah, I did smile, or, dad jokes or whatever it is.
Do you want to hear my peak of the week?
I want to hear your peak of the week.
It might be of the year because I've been saying for a very long time, I live in Santa Barbara, so I regularly walk at the ocean, and I'm always saying, oh my gosh, I just wish I could touch a pelican. They look so cool. My undergraduate degree is wildlife conservation, so I like touching wildlife. So I've been fantasizing about this for a long time. And yesterday, I finally got the opportunity. There was an injured pelican. It had several fish hooks along in different places of its body, and it was very lethargic and just wandering around. I almost wandered into the street. So I was like, you know what? I'm catching the pelican. So I got to hold a pelican on my lap while driving to the wildlife center. And I will tell everybody that's listening, if you wonder what a pelican feels like, its neck and head are like chinchilla velvet. It's the softest thing ever. Yes, it was wonderful. And I'm going to be like the annoying owner because they give you a case number. I'm going to call the wildlife center today and be like, how's pelican? I'm going to keep calling until they have a release date. So that was my peak. And I'm still so stoked about it, like a 5-year-old kid. Like, oh God, I touched a pelican.
I love that your peak of the week starts with this really injured pelican here. I just locked into this.
I was stoked. It was like a bucket list thing. Like I've always wanted to touch a pelican. So next will be a lion. That's down the road.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't wander upon one of those.
Maybe in Africa. All right. So I'm taking this way off track. Let's get back on track for those people listening today, because we have a very busy audience that is, out there just crushing it day after day. So for those listening, if they want to just walk away with a couple of takeaways that they can hopefully start thinking about implementing in their own clinic, what would you say are the top 2 you hope they remember from today?
I think we should, great question. I think we should try to define professionalism, because we can't course correct what we haven't defined, right? Like if no one knows that this is naughty behavior, then we're never going to get to where we need to be. So I think let's try to define professionalism, include the group in that too. Like you said at the team meeting, like what does it mean to them? And then maybe we can come up with a thing. And then whatever it is that is dragging you down the most, if it's the angry client, the euthanasia, like let's focus on where we're seeing the most negativity and work on that one first. I mean, and it could be something we didn't talk about today, but there's going to be something that's a repetitive behavior with their team that is like stopping them.
So it's identifying that thing in the team that people, it's like the elephant in the room you mentioned earlier, that we're all feeling it. It happens over and over. It really needs to be addressed. We might be tolerating it. We've tolerated it for a long time, but you're saying spend some energy there, and that will really go a long way for your team.
You just like, it's like the lobster boiling the pot. You just kind of get used to it, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrific. But so like, let's cut it off before then.
I think that's fabulous. The concept of everything we talked about today of really realigning your team, to me, just speaks of that communication, bringing people back together. And I know that, again, we start with, you're a big communicator. That's part of why I wanted to have you on this podcast today. I've really loved our conversations. And I think that for those in leadership positions, having them have conversations with their team about this, about professionalism, about how we want to take care of each other day in and day out, so that we can have a more positive work experience. Work is always going to be hard because that's what veterinary medicine is, but it can still be a lot more enjoyable and fulfilling, even when it is hard. So I just appreciate you so much being on today to share these ideas with us. And I hope that they're really useful to those listening. And for people that are listening that might want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to find you?
I am trying to grow my LinkedIn desperately. I'm trying to be like clever with all the emojis and the postings and the things. So I am Meghan Bingham on LinkedIn. So I would love to have more friends there.
Awesome. I will send people your way. That will all be linked up in the show notes so you can easily find it. And Meghan, thanks again for being on with us today. It's been really fun.
Thank you. This was perfect.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.